everyone. My name's Kirk. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Kirk.
And thank you, Harris, for those kind words. I guess they're all kind of true. I have been around for a while. This group, eons ago, I came here before I didn't want to come here. It always seemed like it was always at someone else's idea or insistence that I came, and my gosh, and it is, I think, I've told my story here a few times, and I'm quite certain this is the first time I've told it without either Tom or Wallace here. And it just has a little bit different feeling. I admired those guys right from the get-go. One of the first meetings I came to, it was downstairs. Had to go down those back stairway, and Tom I sitting in the front of the room, and my God, he sees me come in, and he just says, "We've been saving this seat for you." And I sat down next to him, and later in that meeting, he got up and he was proudly proclaiming that this group not only met on Monday and Thursday, but also went out in the community. They went to jails and went to the detox facilities. And when he said that, I was probably not sober at that meeting. And when he said that, it scared the crap out of me. And because those are the two places I'm really trying to avoid, and he's talking about going there. And I'm like, this isn't for me. So I hightailed it out the back door, and I lived at that time right across the street, and wasn't seen again here for a while. But so some of the specifics about me. I've been sober for a while now. My sobriety date is December 27th of 2005. Which is kind of miraculous. I've just celebrated 17 years. I have a sponsor who texted me 20 minutes ago, said he was hung up at work, couldn't make it. I do sponsor a few other guys. One of them's here. One is recuperating from surgery. He just sent me a text with a bunch of prayer emojis on it. He knows that I need help of the divine nature, that's for darn sure. I do have a home group. It's the Keeping It Sober group. We meet at the Wilder Building in Aberdeen on Tuesday night and Saturday night at 7. And not only that, I have a service position in that group. Actually, I have two in that group. And also in that building that we meet, I like to think of it as kind of the melting pot of Alcoholics Anonymous in our little area. It's quite a place, and somehow, some way, someone thought it was a good idea if I was involved somewhat in the daily operations of that building. So I have a service position in regard to making sure that the meetings go on and they're kind of safe and somewhat organized and whatnot. So I'm pretty involved in my own little community. I'm also, and I apologize, I did not make the 6 o'clock meeting for the treatment committee. I was going to do that. I have these cats, and one of them, it was bath day for the Persian, and she is 6 pounds of fur and attitude, and it just didn't work out that I got here at 6 o'clock, so I apologize for that. But I am a member of that committee, and still go occasionally. I make cameo appearances up at the detox ward at the hospital. And I really get an awful lot out of that because I was a patient there. I was captured one time, never to be seen again up out there until I knocked on the door, rang the bell to go back in, which is really kind of cool. So our stories disclose in a general way what we were like, what happened, and what we're like now. And I don't know if there's anyone in here. Oh my gosh, Megan's mom almost came, and she saw me kind of at the height of my what it was like adventure. I don't think there's anyone in here that's really seen me out there, which is good. I know Steve Moore has some stories that are a little exaggerated, if you can believe that. But, yeah, what it was like. I was born a long time ago in the Midwest in Michigan, and thoroughly believe that the day I was born, I needed a drink. I just was restless, irritable, and discontent from the get-go for no good reason. I had a loving mother and father. We weren't rich, we weren't poor. Had everything that I needed, not everything I wanted. I have 4 brothers. One of them is an alcoholic, so I would guess that I come by the disease genetically, but it really doesn't matter. I got it, and however I got it is irrelevant. And growing up, I was just really consumed with just a loving atmosphere, and for whatever reason, I never felt like I was deserving of that love. I always felt, even in my own family, apart from. And, at school it was the same way. And, I didn't realize the extent of the internal, dis-ease until I first felt the effect of alcohol. And I was pretty young. And, I grew up a long time ago in the Midwest. There's really, in Michigan in the winter, there's nothing else to do but drink, and in the summer for that regard. So drinking was very prevalent. My parents drank. I don't think I ever saw them drunk, though. But anyway, the first time I felt the effect of alcohol, I was very young, and from that point forward, all the apart from, the less than, the irritability, the discontentment. When I first felt that effect, it disappeared. And, I didn't drink again for a long time after that point, or that first encounter, but I logged into my mind that this effect, this feeling, this substance will serve me well later on. And I guess it was, I drank in high school. What it did for me back then, in the beginning, alcohol empowered me. It gave me the courage to talk to other people, the courage to get on the dance floor and act like an idiot, the bulletproof, the Superman, the stages of the drunkenness, and it had really no negative effect then. As my friend Paul likes to say, it was in stages. In the beginning, it was fun, and then it was fun with problems, and then at the end, it was basically just problems. But I'll get to all that. And my parents were well educated, and they saw to it that they offered all their sons an opportunity to further their education. And my father one day just said, we expect you to go to college, and do you have any idea what you want to do? And of course I said no. He goes, well, what do you like to do? And I said, I like to hang out at the golf course. And sure enough, I found a way to, I went to school to learn how to get paid to hang out at the golf course. I'm in the golf business, and have been, still am. that whole atmosphere of the country club always appealed to me. People went there to play golf, and not only that, to hang out at the pool, to sit at the bar, to tell everyone how important they were. It was really a convivial atmosphere, and I loved it. I just loved it. So that's what I did, and during the course of my career, I have moved around a lot, and life is funny. I'm a firm believer that we learn forward and understand backwards. I never understood why I was doing what I was doing at the time, but I moved around a lot. I thought I was chasing a better career. I thought I was chasing the sun. I thought I was trying to better myself. But what I know now is everywhere I went, there was something wrong, regardless of how nice, and from East Coast to West Coast, North to South. I've been at some very, very nice facilities, but there was always something wrong at every one of them. And I know now that something was me. There was something inside of me that just wasn't comfortable, regardless of circumstance, regardless of, all the material things that, what little success that I amassed, none of that fulfilled me. And, for a while, I could turn the drinking on and off. If there was a function, if there was an obligation to be met, or a decision to be made, I knew when and when not to do what I really like to do. And then all of a sudden, I can't pinpoint the date, but it was August of 1982. I'd been fighting this, good Kirk, bad Kirk, or whatever, wanting to do what I wanted to do versus doing the next right thing. And one day I just woke up and said, screw it. I made a decision on that day that I no longer fought, escaped through drinking, but I embraced it. And regardless of circumstance or consequence, I was going to drink. And, career-wise, I was, up until that point, still rising. And once I made that decision, I started to, base all my job opportunities and where I ended up on my ability or availability to drink at that particular facility. And I knew I was doing the wrong thing. I was miserable, and so even doing exactly what I wanted to do didn't fulfill me. I still was one of the most irritable, distraught, troubled, hopeless human beings around. And this went on for a while. I started to get DUIs and everything, and physically I started to get sick. And it was, 1988. I was working at Disney World, of all places, and here I am working at the happiest place on the planet, and I might be one of the most miserable, uncomfortable, distraught human beings anywhere. And I'd go to wardrobe and get what I was supposed to wear that day, and here's someone dressing up like a mouse or Cinderella or something. I'm like, Jesus, what am I doing? It was really kind of interesting. But anyway, one day I just said, I called in. I said, I can't do this anymore. And they said, oh, you're calling in sick? I said, no, I quit. And my thought was I was just going to stay home and drink all day long. And the problem with that plan is because I didn't manage my money well, and I didn't have the money to support the way I drank without working. And so my entire life I had this safety net, and it was in the form of my parents. And all I had to do was call Mom. Dad was pretty firm, but if I got Mom on the phone, I was in. The check's in the mail kind of thing. And so that's what I did. I called home and said, I need money for rent. And sure enough, the next week, this is a long time ago, so the letter comes, and I'm like, yes, Mom comes through. And I'm expecting to take the check to the bank and be on my merry way. And unfortunately, it's not a check in that envelope. It's a one-way plane ticket home. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this can't be good. And it wasn't my plan, but my parents knew what was going on in my life, what was transpiring, because my permanent address was their address, and so they got a couple notices from the state of Wisconsin versus Kirk D. Strong. They got a couple of bills or notices from emergency rooms in Orlando, Florida, where I started having these internal conditions, and I was really actually kind of physically ill. And so they knew that I was floundering. So I really got no recourse at this point but to get on the plane and go home, And so their idea was to go to a 28-day treatment facility. And, they gave me the option, but, I really didn't have an option. I said, sure, I'll go. And up to that point in my life, I knew absolutely positively nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous. My misconception of an alcoholic was some poor, destitute guy that lives in a cardboard box, drinks cheap wine out of a paper bag, and, that wasn't me. Man, I didn't even have a box. But I learned differently at this place, and I got this book there. Still have it. That's 1988. 12 grand, and I over the years since then, and I did not stay sober from 1988, obviously, until now. From 1988 till 2005, when I surrendered, I probably moved 25 more times, and the only possession I have from that period is this book. So somewhere in my mind, I knew that someday I was going to need this thing, and it took a while before I got into it. But anyway, so I learned an awful lot. I learned that alcoholism is a disease, and I have it. I learned that there were 12 steps, and I get into this treatment facility, and I'm reading the proposals there, and I look at it like a la carte menu, and I wasn't very hungry. I had to admit I was an alcoholic. After what I read and whatnot, I was an alcoholic, but you couldn't tell me my life was unmanageable. The second step offended me. They're insinuating I'm insane. And upon further review, I am. But anyway, I'm going down the list, and none of that appeals to me. And So I said to my counselor, I said, look, all this is well and good, but I gave her, I was supposed to go through at least the first 5 while I was in this facility. I said, how about this? I admit I'm an alcoholic, and I'll skip down to 10. Let's just forget everything that has transpired up to this point. Let's just talk, bunchies, it's out the window. And from this point forward, I'll do better. And she said it doesn't work that way, and it doesn't work that way. Because, I got out of that place. Life got better. I became employable again. I stopped vomiting blood. All these wonderful things were happening in my life. I could call people and go to a job interview and with confidence. Life got better. I didn't. And within a year, I found myself, irritable and discontent to the point where I had to start moving again and drank. Maybe 15 months after that treatment facility. And, they say this is a progressive disease, and I believe that because it's written in the book, but I also know it for a fact because every time after an extended period of abstinence, when I went back, the depth of despair, the guilt, the shame, the remorse was amplified by a lot. And I just can't imagine going through that again and it being any worse. But anyway, so I'm bebopping around the country again, and I'm doing my thing, and somehow or another I meet a girl here in Pinehurst, and we're going to get married, and life is really going to happen now. And I'm thinking to myself, this is exactly what I need. And so I asked this girl's father, can I marry your daughter? And he said, on one condition. And I said, what's that? And he said, you stop drinking. And I said, okay. And I did. And so I didn't drink for a while. And for me, not drinking and recovery are, night and day. Just pure abstinence doesn't do this guy much good. I just stopped drinking, and everything was nice. We had a nice little house here in Southern Pines, and one of those cats that's, all fur and attitude, and we're getting ready to get married, and a couple months before we're going to be married, she decides that she doesn't want to, and in hindsight, that was probably a blessing, because that marriage would have been a disaster for one real good reason, me. But nonetheless, I was devastated, and an alcoholic of this variety doesn't deal with pain of that variety in any way but to just let it loose. And it was on, and it was on with a vengeance. And of course, I had to get away from here. This place now is another one of my problems, and so I end up in the Northeast, and man, I had a really great job there, and I made it through a year there, and they wanted me to come back, and I said to them, really? After that, because I drank on the job every day up there, every day. But I'm pretty good at what I do, so they kind of overlooked certain imperfections. And and so, the owner of the place goes, yeah, we really want you to come back on one condition. I said, what's that, George? He said, well, you can't drink on the job next year. And I said, oh, okay. And he said, okay, what? I said, well, I can't do this job sober, so I'm not coming back. And that was it. And so, so that started this section of my life where now I'm self-employed. which in AA parlance means I'm unemployable. But I'm, I have this ability to still teach the game of golf, and I had a pretty good following, and those people, God bless them, they stuck with me, and I'm thinking I'm doing pretty good. I had leased a car, and it's pretty much brand new, and I'm glad it was almost a brand new car because I was living in it, and I had a place to shower because of I could use the locker room at the facility I used to work at. I had clean clothes because one of my students owned a dry cleaner, but I'm homeless, and I'm, one day away from, being destitute, but in my mind, everything is okay because I've got alcohol, and I'm functioning, and unfortunately, I screwed that up too. I ended up getting a DUI up there, and that was probably the most costly one of the four that I had because I lost, I lost the car, and with that I lost my apartment. So here I am. I'm homeless, and God. People bailed me out all the time, and I don't know why. If the tables were turned, I would have said, dude, figure it out on your own. But, the guy that got me to go up there in the first place gave me a place to stay, and, I was thinking about that on my way here, thinking that, it's a pretty miserable night out there, and I wouldn't be here if I weren't speaking, if I'm going to be honest, because it's cold and wet, and I was out in the cold and wet for 8 hours today, and I can rationalize anything, but I was thinking there was a day, the things I did to get alcohol were amazing. It was December, just before Christmas, and this is right after, the guy bailed me out and he gave me a place to stay and threw a couple bucks my way. I had the key to the clubhouse, and I woke up or came to about 11 o'clock at night, and there's a nor'easter coming, and the wind is howling. It's maybe 33 degrees. The wind and snow and sleet's coming down sideways, and there's no alcohol in my little room, and I need to drink. It's not only the mental obsession, there's a physical compulsion, and I need alcohol. So I put on my coat and I start this. It's about a 500-yard walk from where I am to the clubhouse, and I get halfway, and I had to sit down. I just physically really in bad shape, and I didn't know which way to go. I didn't know whether to go back to the apartment or if I could make it all the way to the clubhouse. And but those are the lengths I went. I finally made it to the clubhouse, and all was well until the next day. But so now when I'm asked to do something in Alcoholics Anonymous, I have to think back on those days. That's what I did to get drunk. How willing am I to stay sober? But I digress. Anyway, so now I'm up there and going through the motions, and one day there's a knock on my door, and it's a good friend of mine, and he said, "Come on, we're going to coffee." And I know we're not going to coffee just to have a cup of coffee. Something's up here. And sure enough, I go, and here's four of my best friends, and it's an intervention, and or ambush, whatever you want to call it. And the bottom line was that all four of them just sat there and said, look, you're killing yourself, man, and we can't stand to watch it anymore. Why don't you go back to AA? And at the time, I was really, really upset. and angry. But deep down, I knew they were right. So I did. I went back to AA. And I went to a lot of meetings for 2 years. I didn't drink for 2 years. And when I say I didn't drink, my personal physician was a good friend of mine. And, I had a surgery on my neck. And so I had this kind of unlimited prescription for Percocet or Vicodin. But I didn't drink. When he saw me getting a little edgy, he prescribed Xanax. So yeah, I wasn't under the influence of alcohol, but that 2-year period, I was under the influence of a mood-altering substance of some point, or of some sort. And I'd like to say though, if the pill bottle said this should last 30 days, it did. At the end of 30 days, there weren't a lot of pills left in that bottle. But, I didn't eat them like Tic Tacs, but nonetheless, I had enough of them that I was, what does Pink Floyd call it, comfortably numb? Yeah. Just enough to take the edge off where I didn't have to drink. And, what happened after that 2-year period, that guy that knocked on the door died, and something inside of me said, that's it. I'm out of here. I quit my job. I moved back down here, and I was drunk in a week. It was just like I was waiting for the opportunity to drink again, and that's what I used as the opportunity. And that was in 2000, and man, the game was on once again, and it was on with a vengeance. I went to a few meetings here, the meeting I mentioned earlier, but I never really even considered surrendering until 2005, and a lot of really ugly things happened those last 5 years. That my last drink lasted almost 5 years, and it almost killed me without being overly dramatic. And I was homeless again. The Social Security Administration sends out, your history of your earnings over the course of your life, and it is funny. Those last 3 years were zeros, but those weren't the only zeros. I had about 6 zeros during the course of my life where I didn't work. I couldn't work. I'm like, how the hell do you think that's not insane or unmanageable? Anyway, so yeah, it's Christmas of 2005. And I'm in a real low spot. I was staying at an inn in the village of Pinehurst that a buddy of mine owns, and he said, the inn is full for the holiday. You got to get out. And that meant I'm out in the street in December in a town that, over the year, I moved here for the first time in 1981, so here I am, 30 years removed from that, and I'm homeless in a village that I know really well, and I know an awful lot of people, and the depth of despair and the demoralization, were just incomprehensible. Anyway, but I run into a buddy of mine. He said, it's Christmas. You can stay on my couch for the night, and I'm like, yes. And it turned into a party. We went down to the convenience store and got a couple bottles of fortified Mad Dog and a whole bunch of these 24-ounce Steel Reserve beers. I'll never forget it. It's my last drunk. If I would have known it was my last drunk, I would have gotten something better. But I didn't. But anyway, this stuff has 8.1% alcohol, and we're just having a big, grand old time. It's Christmas, and we're having a party. And all of a sudden, he goes, "Here, it's for you." He hands me his phone. And I know it's not my phone because I hadn't had a phone in 3 years. A couple of reasons I didn't have a phone. The expense. It was better spent on alcohol. And 2, anyone that was calling me, A, was looking for money, or B, wanted to help me. I didn't have any money to pay anyone what I owed them, and I didn't want help. So the phone was out. But anyway, he hands me the phone, and it's my mother. And how my mom found me, is, I still don't really know, but moms have a way of doing that. And she goes, "Merry Christmas, Kirk." And I said, "Oh, gosh, yeah, that's right. Merry Christmas, Mom. Sorry, I forgot the card." And she goes, "Yeah, enough. Here's the deal." She goes, "You've got 2 options. Your brother's willing to come pick you up day after tomorrow and bring you home. You come home, you go back to AA, you stop drinking, and you do it right this time, or I want nothing else to do with you." And this is coming from, a woman that almost literally loved me to death. She enabled me for decades, and to hear her say that, I knew she meant it. And this is the what happened part of my story, and I still don't understand why I said it, but I said, "Okay, I'll come home." I think it was a combination of things. The safety net was being eliminated. God, I was vomiting blood again, and I didn't want to go back through that ordeal again, and I really had no other option. So sure enough, my brother comes, he picks me up, and we drive back to Michigan, and that was my last drunk, and everything is wonderful from that point on. Wrong, that early recovery is tough. My God, the reason I drank was all the guilt, the shame, the remorse, all the mountains of life issues that I'm ill-equipped to deal with. The physical stuff, the legal stuff, the financial stuff. It's all in my face, and I have nowhere to escape. And so I went to a meeting every day, and God, thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm so obtuse and still so ignorant as to the procedure and what needs to be done to really help myself. I just went to the meeting and sat there and shared, a little bit here and there, but I didn't have a sponsor or anything. Finally, one day, a couple weeks in, a guy came up to me and said, "Well, you seem pretty sincere about this Alcoholics Anonymous thing." He said, "You need help." Wow, didn't take a rocket scientist to figure that one out, but he was right, And he said, I'm gonna be your sponsor." I didn't even know to ask for the sponsor. And that man picked me up every morning. One morning we're at breakfast before the meeting we're going to that day, and out of the blue, he looked at me and he said, "Do you pray?" And I looked at him. I didn't say a word, but I'm thinking to myself, what on earth does that have to do with anything, And when I didn't respond, he said, I'll take that as a no. He said, "You better start." And I said, "Okay, Ron, here's the deal. I was an altar boy when I was a kid, and it was so long ago. In the Catholic Church, the prayers were still in Latin, so I recited the prayers in Latin. So I didn't even know what I was, I was just by rote spitting some words out that I had memorized. And I said, that's really the last time I prayed, so I don't know how to pray or what to pray for." He goes, "Did you have a desire to drink today?" And another stunner. I didn't know what to say to that. I got thinking about it, and I said, "Well, no, I don't. He goes, that's a gift. He goes, tonight when you get home, before you go to bed, get on your knees and say thank you for removing the obsession to drink. Tomorrow morning, you get on your knees and say, please remove that obsession to drink. And I've done that every day since. And that obsession has been removed. And this is from a guy that for decades, if I wasn't drinking, all I could think about was how I was going to get or when I was going to be able to do it again. And those were the thoughts that consumed me. And, after I made that decision to say, screw life, I'm just going to be a drunken idiot my entire life. So that was the start of, and on page 29 in our book, it talks about how the stories in the book are in our own words, how we got connected with the God of our understanding, and that was the beginning for me. And we went through the steps, and I got into the fourth step up there, but moved down here and finished my fourth step here with John M. My gosh, what a neat guy. I picked my sponsor because, I'm not liking the prospect of me having to bare my soul to another human being. And so I'm going to pick someone who I think is worse than I am. Someone who might have done something worse than I did during the course of their life. So I picked this guy, and I chose properly. Sponsorship is awesome. I couldn't wait to share my fifth step. I really couldn't, because I was ready to purge all this stuff, all the guilt, the shame, the remorse, everything, was pinpointed now, and I was ready to get rid of it. And, he decides we're going to do it on the golf course. So we play 9 holes, and I'm like, John, when are we going to get to this fifth step thing? He goes, okay, let's do it now. And what he did first, he shared a couple of things from his. And it kind of just blew me away. And I'm just thinking to myself, I don't believe I ever would have shared what he just shared with me with any other one, with any other person. And like any good alcoholic, I had 2 lists of things that I wanted to share or really needed to share. One was what I was going to tell him, and one that I was going to keep for myself because I wasn't quite ready to get rid of everything. But after hearing him share what he shared, I went right to the second list, the things that really ate my lunch. And he goes, okay, that's it? I go, that's it. I just, wow, I just did it. He goes, well, here's the good news. You never have to do that again. You never have to share any of that stuff again with anyone unless you think that'll help someone down the road when you're trying to help them get sober. And, there aren't many things that I have not shared with another sponsee. So it's really amazing how that worked. And all the direct amends, I made the big ones. I still have a list that's incomplete because there's an employer in Yuma, Arizona that I haven't met face-to-face with and may not ever have that opportunity. There's one in Miami, Florida. There's one in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's one in Westerly, Rhode Island. There's one in Nashville, Tennessee. There's some people scattered throughout the country that physically I have not met face-to-face with and made amends to them. And most of them are former employers. But they're still on my list, and I am willing when the opportunity presents itself. And just when I think that it's never going to happen, last year, my boss from Disney was playing golf at where I work here in town. And I'm like, no way. And, he was my boss, and at Disney, everything was pretty clean-cut, straight-laced. He's got a ponytail down to his belt. And I'm like, well, I've got to do this. And I said, John, my gosh, I need to talk to you about the way I acted while I worked for you. He goes, all of us were doing something at that point. And, he just said, I know where you're coming from. He said, don't give it another thought. Just keep on doing what you're doing. And it was really just one of those cool moments in life. And man, the golf business is a small world. I see people that come through here from all over the country that have seen me out there, and they say, you're doing something different, aren't you? And, I don't see any progress in me. I'm still an idiot savant. I say some things that aren't very spiritual, but there's a step for that. What I don't do is I don't go out of my way to hurt others anymore. And I actually, that last suggestion, try and help others and practice these principles in all our affairs, that is what an order. But what a way of life it is, to work with another man. One of my sponsees is here, and I put him on the spot a lot. I volunteer him to do things when he's not at the business meeting, and all the fun things in sponsorship brings. But I've never asked him to do anything that I have not done or am not willing to do myself. I am really, really involved in that building, in the Wilder building, but I get that from my sponsor. I'm just doing the same thing that he did. So, what's it like now? Do I have everything I want? No. I was always a materialistic person ever for as long as I can remember. I always wanted the house, the car, the villa in Aruba, the perfect job, the perfect spouse, all that. And, really, I don't have any of that. I have a car that works. I live in a rented little house. I have 3 cats. I've never been happier in my life. I have this inner peace, this contentment, that regardless of what transpires in the real world, I know it's all just surface clutter. I still suck at life. I really do. I am overwhelmed so easily. And the God of my understanding, I know He doesn't give us more than we can handle. Mother Teresa said, I just wish he didn't have so much confidence in me. And because there are still things that I think are overwhelming that I end up facing, and it's because I do have the strength of that power greater than myself. And, I vowed that I was going to stay sober or get sober quickly tonight. Somehow that never happens. Because, I was drunk for decades and I haven't been sober for decades. But I'm working on that. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you for being out on an ugly night. I love you all. Thanks.